Hello, everyone. Today we have Vlad with us. Vlad, just start us off. When did you get diagnosed with diabetes?
It was about 14 months ago, so I'm pretty new.
So you have that adult-onset diabetes, type 1?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I was 39, turning 40.
okay, okay. And when you get diagnosed, what they tell you?
Not much. I was actually in a very poor state. I was hospitalized at the emergency room in deep ketoacidosis
Yeah,
actually.
ketoacidosis.
Yeah, and I was just put in the hospital. It was a bit difficult for them to convince me that I must get into the hospital because I wanted to leave. I had a different project to take care of at that point. But my mother was with me. She was crying, and I said, "Okay, I'll stay in the hospital." It was interesting because I didn't feel any pain, or I was just tired. So it looked to me a little bit too much to stay in the hospital. But then I realized it was quite close to a coma, and I could have passed away easily because I had to drive during the next days, and getting into a coma while driving, that's definitely not very pleasant to say. So,
Yeah.
and they didn't tell me much in the beginning. I stayed in the hospital several days. It was comfortable, cozy, I would say. I got medication every day, food, family visiting. It was okay. But then when I got out, I had like a short meeting with the doctor. She was very nice, and she explained to me that it's a quite difficult situation, and I need to take care of myself very well to reduce the work hours. That was one of the problems. I used to work a lot, and it seems to be part of the cause of my diabetes. And
Stress,
I
you
got
think?
excuse me.
Stress?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I might get back to this a little bit later. I got a prescription. I have the prescription here, and it was interesting because I got a total of 34 units of insulin, Lantus and Apidra, 12 units of Lantus every evening, and then 10-6-6 before every meal of Apidra, which is a very fast insulin. And then I have here the letter when I got out from the hospital, and they recommend 250 grams of carbohydrates daily. It's right over here.
Ain't that something, huh?
Yeah, 250 grams of carbohydrates daily,
Yikes.
uh, and the insulin that I just told you about.
Hmm.
Um, maybe 250 was a little bit too much in the beginning because I lost a lot of weight before of that. I look good now, but when I got into the hospital, I think I had 60 kilograms,
Yeah, that happens with diabetics.
and I'm 6.1 tall, and so I was around 140 pounds, and probably the doctor wanted to give me some extra carbs to gain some weight. I assume at this point. But anyway, it's a lot. I mean, even before I didn't eat that much carbs. So this is basically the end of the story with the hospital. I just got out, and it's interesting that it's funny because I'm not superstitious or religious or something like that. But just one night before I was diagnosed with diabetes, I was looking on YouTube because I knew I'm in a poor state, and I was trying to figure out a new diet or something like that. I knew about keto. And I ran into a presentation by Dr. Peter Attia on TEDx. And he was talking about ketogenic diets. He was talking about his metabolic syndrome and so on. And as a matter of fact, the very first morning in the hospital, I stopped eating carbohydrates. The first meal was the first meal I got over there was potatoes with white bread and the chicken leg. And I called my mother and I told her I'm not going to eat that because it just doesn't make sense. And I'm a little bit lucky because my mother was a doctor. she just retired and she understood the basic things. And she said, okay, I'll bring you some extra food. And I got meat and cabbage and almonds and so on. So this is the moment I just stopped eating carbohydrates totally. Never looked back to the carbs.
So upon diagnosis, you stopped eating carbohydrates, or was it a little bit
Yes.
after? Yes?
It was like the next morning.
Wow. Oh, kudos to you for not listening to the 250 carb minimum they had you go in there.
Yeah, it didn't sign. When I got this letter, it was like probably 1 week later. So I already knew about Dr. Bernstein. I watched a lot of YouTube in the hospital because there was nothing else to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 100% sure that I don't want to go to the standard diet. This is partly because I was always very careful with my diet, and I always looked into eating very healthy. I wanted to go keto, like not even low carb, but just ketogenic, because I understood what's ketogenic and how does it work and how important it is at that point. It was my only chance to have a healthy and normal life after that. That was 100% clear for me. I had no doubt about it.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad you found your way quickly there. Were you following the recommendations for insulin?
That's an interesting story that happened. Because I didn't take any carbohydrates, maybe in the beginning I had 20, 30 grams daily somehow in the cabbage or some other plants that I ate. I ran into hypoglycemia very fast with this insulin. And the first day I came back to work, and I went to work with my wife, and I got this Apidra 10 units in the morning, and I got a very severe hypoglycemia. And actually, this is when I cheated the ketogenic diet, because I had to take some sugar, and right after sugar, I had a piece of bread. I got a piece of bread and I ate it, and I said, okay, it just doesn't work. This Apidra doesn't work. It's too fast for me. And I bought Dr. Bernstein's book and I started to read about it. And even when I took like very small quantities of Apidra, like 2 units, it was interesting because every hour I had to check my blood sugar and maybe add another 2 units of Apidra. So it was like every hour checking about it. And it was annoying after a while to measure the blood sugar every hour and add or don't add this Apidra. And sometimes I had to eat a little bit more. So it was like a constant trying to match it like live. It was like a live set for me to match my blood sugar with my insulin. And then I went to a different doctor because where I was hospitalized, it was in the city I was born, which is like 400 miles away from me, from where I live at this point. So I looked for a local doctor. Somebody was recommended to me, and I went to the doctor office, and I was just prescribed a new set of blood work. And I told the doctor, listen, I cannot take this Apidra anymore because it's too fast. So it just doesn't work for me. I didn't say anything about low carb or ketogenic diet because I didn't want to dive into the whole situation, knowing that most of the doctors, when they hear about ketogenic diet, especially doctors that are specialized in diabetes, they freak out thinking of the ketosis. She refused to prescribe me something else. She kind of dismissed me. She said, no, everything is the same. There is nothing I can give you. And I knew about Humulin-R and Novolin-R and other regular insulins because I was already deep into Dr. Bernstein's book. And I was not satisfied. I insisted a little bit to the doctor, telling her that, listen, it's not okay because I feel the best with the blood sugar around 90, 100. Even below 90, I was okay at that point. And this insulin, it's pushing me down very fast, or I go up to like 120 when I don't feel very okay. And she was like, what do you mean 120? It's perfect. Your brain needs glucose. You need to have 120. And it didn't make sense to me because the basic logic tells you that if the brain needs glucose and you have 120, it just means that glucose didn't go into the brain. So the brain is starving. It's somewhere in the blood. it just didn't work. I didn't stay too much to the doctor. I went to the next pharmacy, which was just around the corner, and I bought. I was lucky. We are lucky here in Romania that we can actually buy some insulin without a prescription. So I just bought the insulin. It's quite cheap, and I stopped using. Excuse me.
Was it the R insulin that you bought?
Yeah, it's a regular insulin. It's Humulin R.
Okay.
I think I have it somewhere around here.
That's actually the same in the States. We can buy it at Walmart for about $25 a vial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bought 5 cartridges with about $20, I would say, $25, 5 cartridges of 100 Humulin 100 R100. So this is what happened with Humulin, and since then I didn't go to any official doctor in Romania, because it makes no sense. I mean, it would be a waste of time. I have a family doctor. I go visit her. She's very nice. I started to tell her about my diet, and she's okay. She's like, okay, do whatever you want. If you feel good and the blood work looks okay, no problem. And after that, I also ran into some articles about Lantus insulin, and it seems to be there is some suspicion that it could increase the risk of cancer. And I freaked out about that, because I have a lot of people in my family before me that had metabolic disease, including cancer. My grandfather had cancer. He had a surgery and he lived forever free of cancer. There was no problem. My uncle died of cancer. And other people, grandfather from my father's side also had cancer. So both grandfathers, they had cancer. So I said, okay, I don't want to try the Lantus. Okay, maybe it's okay, maybe it's fine, but until I'm 100% sure it's fine, I don't want to try it. And I looked online and I found Tresiba, but it's not available to buy it in Romania for some reason, even though it's available all over European Union. Romania, as part of the European Union, doesn't have it. So I bought it from Hungary. I was able to order it online and buy it from Hungary. But later I stopped using Tresiba. I'll tell you why a little bit later. So this was my adventure with the doctors. And somewhere in June, my mother got, over the time she got concerned, being trained in the late 70s, early 80s as a doctor, she was concerned about cholesterol, about some other stuff, about complications of diabetes. She was a little bit scared because I didn't gain too much weight. I moved a little bit up with the body weight, but not too much. And she was scared about the ketogenic diet. And I was strictly ketogenic diet, eating quite wide variety of foods at that point, like plant-based and meat-based. There was no, I didn't look into specific foods. I didn't know much about anti-nutrients, about different allergies that I have. I didn't know much about vitamins, and I started to read a lot more. So I ate a lot of plants and meats. A lot of plants like avocados, cabbage, broccoli, fruits once in a while, not too many, and meats and other stuff. And also I used to drink a lot of coffee. The coffee was very, it could be one of the causes of my diabetes, looking back. Coffee and chocolate, a lot of coffee, a lot of chocolate, a lot of eggs. And because my mother was concerned, I was looking for a doctor specialized in diabetes, so I could visit this doctor once in a while. And since my wife is Hungarian, we thought let's look in Budapest. Maybe we find somebody in Budapest, and they are more willing to accept my ketogenic diet. And we ran into a site which is called Paleomedicina. And then somewhere in August, we went in the vacation, and I went in Locarno for a film festival. And on the way back from vacation, we stopped and we scheduled a meeting with Dr. Todd Schaub. And it was a very interesting meeting, because he looked at my blood work and he said, it looks good. You control very good your blood sugar. I have to add that my blood sugar was usually somewhere in between 80 and 120. My A1C was 4.8, 5.2, something like that. And he looked into the blood work and he said, yeah, it works. The ketogenic diet works very well for you for controlling your blood sugar. But there is much more into these diets and that you should know. And that triggered something into me. And he explained something very interesting. And maybe I'll send you the links so you can post it in the comments.
Sure.
They are not so much into controlling the blood sugar because that is quite easy and doable with almost any low carb diet. They are interested a lot more into what they call intestinal permeability. Because that seems to be the cause of all autoimmune disease. And then later somewhere in November, the last year, I went again in Budapest and I did a test for intestine permeability, and definitely I have it. It's not very bad, but I have it. And the simple explanation that he gave me, and it's probably much deeper if you look into the details of the science, is that because you eat a lot of plant-based foods, and they contain a lot of anti-nutrients, you get this permeability of the intestine. And then it's gaps into the intestine, micro gaps into the intestine, and then protein from milk and generally from dairy, they pass through, and they are very similar with some proteins in the pancreas. And then the autoimmune is developing antibodies and cells that would attack this dairy protein, but they will attack the pancreas as well. And this is, I found it in different sources that most of the time the cause of type 1 diabetes is the dairy protein going through the intestine. And then it made a lot of sense because beside cancer from my grandfather, my grandmother had these kind of problems. She had a very bad gluten intolerance. And my cousin has lupus, which is an autoimmune disease as well. And it all added up into this and made sense to me that everybody in my family has some complications of autoimmune complications or cancer complications. And then he said, okay, Dr. Todd Shobo explained to me that in order to fix this, because there is no way you can fix it, you just need to change the diet to tune it up a little bit more. So you need to go into like Paleolithic diet. And this is, they define it as Paleolithic diet, but it's to explain it easier, I would say it's a carnivore ketogenic diet.
Yeah, because so paleo typically means, paleo the way we define it includes tubers and fruits and stuff like that typically, but what they're talking about is much more carnivorous ketogenic, right?
Exactly. He said that for a healthy person, having 30% in the foods from plants is no problem, and he gave me a lot of examples of plants, like exactly the tubers and the cruciferous vegetables and some fruits that were not that are not very sweet. They're not hybridized too much during the past thousands of years, like forest fruits and things like this. He said, no problem, you can have it once in a while in a very small quantity. If you really crave something sweet, take a spoon of like raw organic honey. There is no problem. Okay, your blood sugar is going to rise a little bit, but you're fine. It's not going to affect the intestine anymore, any worse. And it sounded very interesting to me. And it was funny because we just came from France, from South France and Switzerland and so on. We got a lot of cheese for me, and I had to stop eating dairy at that point. So we were left with, like, I don't know, 20 kilograms of cheese in the refrigerator. And then I started this protocol, and that was very fast. I saw improvements very fast. Now the range of blood glucose went even smaller. It's 7,100. It's somewhere in between 7,100. I can easily stay in the 90. Easily. And it's very, very easy to calculate because I eat meat. I just eat meat with fat, a lot of fat. So if I look into my diet, it's when I'm talking about quantities, gram per gram, it's half it's fat, half it's meat. like muscle meat, and that's it. This is all I eat all day long, like 2 meals, and it's good enough.
Do you eat any organ meats?
Yes, definitely. Once a week, I have to eat. They recommended liver, brain, all the organ meats. Bone marrow. I eat a lot of bone marrow, bone broth, and bone marrow. I can find the bones for very cheap, and I just bought a crock pot and we boil them. And I actually break my fast every morning. It's not morning. It's around 12, 1 o'clock in the day with bone broth. It's very. My digestion feels very good with the bone broth, and then I add some meat in the diet. So it looked very interesting what he told me, and I started, and I felt all these improvements. And the major improvement that came, it was that my digestion improved perfectly. I have a perfect digestion at this point. I always had problems with all my digestion, starting from like little problems in the mouth and all the way down with a lot of nights feeling very sick or having stomach aches, like very, very long and painful stomach aches, and a lot of bowel movement, and it was a mess. It was a mess, always was a mess. And my mother knew about it, and she always thought that I'm very sensitive to foods and I need to take care of that. Now that changed, like in 2 weeks, it was perfect. I don't have any single problem from the problems that I ever had. My digestion is very, very nice, and I lost a lot of fat from my belly. I was skinny and fat in the same time. I think that's a problem that a lot of people with diabetes have. Mm-hmm. You accumulate some fat because of the insulin on the belly, around the belly, but you are weak, and the muscle mass it's quite weak. So after this carnivore ketogenic diet, somewhere, I don't know, like 2 months ago or something like that. So I would say 4 months inside the ketogenic diet, the carnivore ketogenic diet, I felt very good. I felt very, very, very good, and I never look back to the plants, and I don't crave anything. And for the first time in my life, I had a six-pack, and I could watch in the mirror, and I could look to myself in the mirror, and I was like, okay, I see my muscles. I'm not a muscly guy, but I look healthy. I see my muscles, and I lost a lot of fat, body fat, but I gained weight in the same time. So it looks like my muscle, it's increasing. My muscle mass, it increases without exercise.
Yeah, you're more toned, right?
Excuse me?
More toned, you'd say?
Yeah, definitely. I gain a lot of lean body mass. And I don't work out yet. I'm looking into that, but I don't work out because I don't know exactly how I should do it. I'm looking into cardio on one side and weightlifting on the other side. But I want to do some tests for my calcium. What is the name of it? The calcium scan of my heart.
CAC score?
CAC, exactly. Yeah. Because I don't want to start cardio before knowing that my heart is in perfect shape, and then I start cardio, and then I want to train it and so on. So I don't work out, but I gain a lot of lean body mass. Digestion is perfect. I'm never hungry. I just eat 2 meals a day, sometimes only one. I don't crave anything. This is fascinating with this paleo-ketogenic diet. Before that, in the ketogenic diet, sometimes I would crave some chocolate, and I had just raw chocolate, raw cocoa, and I would eat it. I don't crave it anymore. I just don't care about it. We just came from a supermarket. We went to shopping, and it's like the forbidden city for me, the supermarket. I just walk between the aisles, and I cannot touch anything. I just go to the fresh meat aisle, and even the fresh meat aisle, it's a lot of fish that it's farmed. I don't eat it. It's usually the beef is too lean for me. I prefer fat beef. Chicken, I don't eat chicken very much. I just don't like it.
It's kind of bland.
Yeah, chicken and usually birds. My mother gave me a duck, I think 2 or 3 months ago. That was nice. The duck was nice. I had the duck soup. But no, chicken, I don't like chicken. I like and I feel the best with beef and lamb. In the Eastern Europe, we eat a lot of pork. So I have a lot of pork in the refrigerator, and Usually I use pork fat to cook my steaks or whatever I cook. I don't eat lard anymore because the lard is probably a bit rancid and it's a bit oxidized, and I prefer the fresh fat. I just melt it a little bit in a pan and then just add the meat. And also I tried uncooked meat, but this is a bit tricky because it has to be very good quality. It's a risk of eating some bacteria that we're not supposed to eat. But I tried it. I do cook it's improper said cooking, very nice beef tartare with eggs and some mustard seeds, and it's really good, and I feel very good after it, and it's very easy to calculate my insulin. It's very, very easy. For the lunch, for every 60 grams of meat, it's 1 unit of insulin. In the evening, every 80 grams of meat, it's 1 unit of insulin, and it just works. It's very simple.
Yeah, what I like about the carnivore approach is that there's just a lot less variables to account for. If you're having a very various plate with lots of meat and veggies, you have to not only account for the protein in the meat, but you also have to account for all the carbs and the vegetables and how that interacts with the meat and all that mumbo jumbo. But if you're just eating one or two things, well, it's a lot easier to account for. So I understand
exactly.
that. Yeah.
Exactly.
So just to get that point across, you're literally eating no vegetables, none of that stuff at all. What about dairy?
No, dairy? Definitely no. Dairy is out, and it will always be out. What I eat now is mainly meat and fat, as I said, gram per gram equally. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I have sauerkraut, like pickled cabbage. Small quantities, like 100 grams at most, because it works. Because it's tasty. It works very well with fat, and with steaks, and it's okay because it's fermented.
Yeah,
it's fermented, and it just works.
How much insulin you say you're taking now? 1 unit per meal?
No, 1 unit per 60 grams at lunch,
okay,
and 1 unit per 80 grams at dinner.
All right, and what kind of insulin are you taking now?
Excuse me?
What kind of insulin are you taking now?
It's only Humulin R.
What about?
I only use insulin for bolus. I don't use insulin for basal treatment.
Interesting.
Because the quantity of insulin that I needed, it just went down to 2 units of Tresiba. And I just stopped on the 1st of December last year. I just stopped using Tresiba, and it works like that. And also, what I wanted to say is that with this paleo-ketogenic diet, I did some blood work, and I check my C-peptide every time. Every 3 months, I get a blood work and I check the C-peptide. And when I was hospitalized, my C-peptide was 0.83, so it wasn't very bad.
And that's showing how much insulin you're making in your body, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the last time I checked, it was in December this year. It was 1.02, so it increased. So it looks like the pancreas it's getting back a little bit.
Interesting.
I don't have the blood. I don't have the blood work from December, from the past December, because I just don't have it in a printed version, but I can send it to you on a digital. It's just a scan. So if you want to publish,
sure.
I hope there are not people thinking that I'm lying about increasing the C-peptide over the...
What people would be skeptical about is you getting off your basal insulin. What are your blood sugars like? Are they still 90 to 100?
Yeah, sometimes it goes above 100, of course, but no, I can read you what happened today.
Very nice.
I take notes of all the foods, everything that I do. I just take notes of it. I have this journal, and it's an application that also the doctor has, and hopefully he's gonna check sometimes. So just let me open the application. I'll tell you the values that I had today. So
okay, while you're doing that, I will say as a little disclaimer, you started out pretty quickly with the ketogenic approach, and you moved to the carnivore approach soon after that, right?
Yeah.
And considering you're also an adult type 1 diabetic, you're a very lucky case, I'd say, in being able to catch this early and be able to catch this as an adult. for the diabetics like me who've been diagnosed for a long time and didn't find this approach till like a decade or so later, chances are pretty slim you're going to be able to get off insulin trying this, but it's still a good approach nonetheless.
Yeah, I know. I met people that were diagnosed with diabetes, both adults, both children, but they were very late diagnosed. And I talked to them about my C-peptide, and they said, okay, but when I was diagnosed, I didn't have any insulin at all.
Yeah.
So
yeah, once it's gone, you can't really bring it back, unfortunately. But, as Bernstein says, it's not a cure, it's a solution, right?
Of course, yeah. No. It's just taking care. I still hope, I don't want people that listen to this, or people, I tell a lot of people that I talk to them, listen, I still hope that I will improve my pancreas function a little bit, but I don't hope I will get healed. And this is maybe, it could be easily be honeymooning. And maybe I'll just prolong it for, I don't know, for years maybe. Hopefully, Bernstein is talking about that.
Yes.
But you never know. So controlling the blood sugar is the most important thing, and stopping the complications. And hopefully for some of us, improving the pancreatic function a little bit, it's a lot. It's going to matter a lot in the long term. Let me read you the blood sugar from today. So today I woke up at 10:22. I couldn't sleep last night a little bit, so I slept a little bit longer. I had 93 when I woke up. And then after the meal, 2 hours after the meal, it was 1:20, 1:21, it was 89. And then at 4:04, it was 74.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's what's up.
Today it's a very good day. But if I look back, for example, yesterday at 12 o'clock, I had 118. And 2 days before, at 11:24, I had 101.
That's still within non-diabetic levels.
Yeah, it's still decently. And let's say like every 2 weeks, I run into a day when it's either miscalculation, either I'm tired, or some inflammation, I still have allergies, maybe I'm cold or something like that. It can go to 130, like once in 2 weeks. And on the ketogenic diet, I had situations when it went to 170 because, I don't know, probably because of miscalculating carbohydrates, hidden carbohydrates in all these bigger quantity of different ingredients. And, but I would say that I'm lucky or not lucky is one of the problems, the major problem I had with the diabetes. And the most important reason I went to the doctors is that when it goes above 120, when it reaches 140, I get very angry, just for no reason. I'm just angry and depressed. And that's why I went to the doctors. And I thought that it's a mental thing in the beginning, but it turned out to be just the blood sugar. So I'm very sensitive to the high blood sugar, and all of a sudden I feel it and I measure it, and I just get a cover of 2 extra units if it's necessary. 2 extra units of insulin.
Okay. And do you get low very often?
Not much. It's
cool.
Pretty much equally. Sometimes in the evening, I don't know, every third day, I would say, it goes below 80, somewhere in between 70 and 80. And then again, once in 2 weeks, maybe it goes below 60, something like that. But then it never goes below 40. But what I noticed, I have an explanation for that. It might not be right. What I noticed that when I'm in ketosis, like deep ketosis, and I know that based on the foods that I ate, the symptoms of hypoglycemia that are very mild, because you still have a good source of energy in your body, so the body is not reacting like that. And I have here it's a jar of honey. I keep it next to my bed, and if it's needed, I just take 5 grams of it, like once a week, once 2 weeks.
How would you measure 5 grams of honey? Is just like a teaspoon or something?
How I measure it, I have a scale, and I put the jar on top of it, and then I take the spoon and I see how is the difference of it.
Okay.
How much lower.
Yeah.
it's difficult to measure it with the spoon. You can't put the spoon on the scale with the honey. It's gonna. But this honey, it's raw and it's organic.
Is it from your area too?
Yeah, I think it's up north, but it's Romanian. It's
Nice.
Romanian.
Nice. I use glucose tabs myself, but I've been looking into honey, and I haven't thought about trying to just use a scale for it because I've always been concerned about getting the correct dosage. Because the reason glucose tabs are useful because you know exactly what 4 grams is. With honey, it's a little bit harder, but with scale, good idea.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that.
It's if you take a big spoon, it's 10 grams. So even visually, you understand, and the difference in between 5 grams or 8 grams is not that important. The reason I take honey is because it falls into the Paleolithic protocol, and honey is half fructose, half glucose. So if it's going to rise my blood sugar, it's not going to be that much and that fast.
Yeah.
So basically, in 6 grams of honey, it's only 3 is glucose. The other 3 are fructose. This is what, in theory, was supposed to be. I don't know exactly what's going on into this jar.
Fantastic. So from before you started this approach to now, what would you say has improved for you? Just to recap.
Digestion. Digestion is 100% fixed. 100% fixed. The deviation of the blood glucose from the average improved a little bit, not too much, but improved. I don't have so many highs and so many lows, and they are not so aggressive as they used to be before. I gain power. Eating meat, it's gonna fix the muscle. So I gain my muscle back to normal, just to normal stage, and I can work now. I used to be very tired on the classical ketogenic diet, especially in the second part of the day. I was just so dizzy, and sometimes I had some mild headaches. It just didn't work perfectly all the time. Most of the time it worked, so I was tired. And now I don't have that problems. I can work. I can just go to work, and mentally it improved very much, especially from the times before I was diagnosed, when I had blood sugars of like maybe 600 sometimes. I'm just focused. I can pay attention. My mind works very, very well. I have good memory at this point. I used to have a very good memory. I used to be able, because I did a lot of coding as a kid, and even when I was young, I was good at numbers. I just could remember long numbers, very long numbers. And I lost this capacity as a diabetic. I lost this capacity, and I was very annoyed about that. I couldn't just remember 2 digits or something. It was very difficult. And this improved with the ketogenic diet, with lowering the blood sugar. But since the paleo-ketogenic diet, it improved even further. I tell my wife I'm again 25. I don't look like, but I'm again 25.
Fantastic. And what was your A1C when you were diagnosed?
11.73, I think. Let's look at it. The last time I checked, it was 4.95.
Fantastic. That's great to hear.
It was 11.52.
So about 11.5. Wow. I see. You don't have to prove it to me. I believe you.
I'm just showing it for the audience. So
fantastic. Fantastic. Well, it's good to see the proof in the pudding there, man. And great to see you're doing better. It looks like we really hashed it all out. I assume you don't have any complications or anything since you started so early on.
I didn't check everything, but I had some neurological complications, definitely, because that is the reason I got so extremely angry.
And that's all good now?
I couldn't. Yeah, that's fixed. That's totally fixed. It was a little bit longer to fix that, because probably there were some modifications into my brain and my nerves, and I also had some problems with my small fingers. I couldn't feel them. But this I realized only after I was diagnosed and I got insulin. I realized that actually I feel better now, my fingers. And I had some reflexes. My fingers were moving like that all the time. And then it just stopped.
So mild neuropathy. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to see it's better.
Yeah, that's totally fixed. There is some stuff that is not fixed, and I need to look into it. It's my thyroid hormones. The T3 hormone is not okay. It's low. It's just below the limit, but it's low, and I still have some problems. I still have problems when I wake up in the morning. It takes me a little bit longer than when I was 25, so I'm not really 25. My feet and my hands are cold, much colder than they used to be, and I'm a little bit slow sometimes. It's probably because this T3, and Dr. Berstin is talking about it, and I will see an endocrinologist probably next week to see how I can fix it. I don't want to take any medication because it's gonna mess up with the Paleolithic diet, but I have to look into this.
All right, well, look into it, and maybe we can get an update on that. But well, I believe that sort of wraps up and hashing the whole thing out, seeing your progress, seeing how well you're doing now with the Paleolithic Ketogenic approach. We'll leave it at this. Do you have anything else you'd suggest to any diabetics watching this right now?
Yeah, I was thinking when you were talking about hashing it up, I was thinking most of the people that I talk to about Paleoketogenic diet, they are scared of cholesterol. They're very scared about cholesterol. I was very scared in the beginning. My mother is very scared because she was educated, as I said, in the late 70s when the cholesterol was a big thing. It is not. Do your research and look online. I will send you some links. There is a lot of people on YouTube. There is a lot of research. Cholesterol is not a problem. It's definitely not a problem. Actually, the bigger, the better, because it's the building block of our tissues, of our cell membrane, of our brains, and so on. And after having a long period of being diabetic, and when a lot of tissues it's affected by the blood glucose, I think having a high cholesterol might actually help. There is a lot to talk about LDL, HDL, and so on. But what I want to say is that when I started, the LDL went very high, somewhere 250 or something like that. But then it lowered a little bit. And at this point, the last time I checked in December, cholesterol was 300. I have the numbers here. Let me read it to you. So total cholesterol was 304. But, this is a very important but, triglycerides were 75. HDL was 70. So the ratio of triglycerides and 70, it's almost 1. It's 1.08 actually, which puts you way out of any cardiovascular risk. So the triglycerides would go down even though the LDL was 239. LDL is no problem. LDL is actually not cholesterol. It's a particle transporting cholesterol. So when you are on a ketogenic diet, you definitely need a lot of these particles that transport triglycerides and cholesterol, because this is the source of your energy. It's normal to have it. And also when I quit coffee, I was very much into coffee because me and my wife, we manage a restaurant and a coffee shop. And I was very much into the specialty coffee. I used to have like even 10 espresso every day. I went to classes. I developed all these skills about tasting coffee and about preparing coffee, etc. And I used to drink a lot of coffee, which is actually full of anti-nutrients affecting the intestine. And there is Dave Feldman talking about it, that when you drop the coffee, when you don't drink coffee anymore, the triglycerides will fix on a ketogenic diet. And in the beginning, I had high triglycerides, around 100, and now it's 70. So they are going down in a excellent ratio with the HDL cholesterol. This is the thing that people on the ketogenic diet, when they started, they are very scared of. But if you bear with that, if you are patient, it's normal, and they will fall definitely into very, very good values.
Okay, fantastic. Good note to leave off on, because a lot of people do get concerned about that kind of thing. Well,
oh my God, cholesterol! I do believe. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I do believe cholesterol. It's one of the worst scheme in the history of medicine, is just to make money from pills. But cholesterol, it's one of the building blocks of our tissues, and we really need it. We really need it. Being scared of it, it's like you cut your finger and it's a lot of blood coming out, and you are scared of blood. You need to get rid of the blood because you're bleeding. No, you need the blood. You need to have this blood. It's part of your body. It's very important.
I heard someone liken it to the firefighters. I mean, you don't blame the firefighter for the fire just because they're always there when the fire happens. You know, they're there to fix it.
Yeah. That's a classical analogy.
Yes.
That I always hear. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
like police in the traffic. They are not causing the traffic jam. They are trying to fix it.
Exactly. Well, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time, Vlad. I loved hearing your story. That's the Paleolithic Ketogenic approach. And one thing I wanted to ask: Do you eat salt? Because I hear salt's okay.
Yes.
Okay, salt's okay.
Yes.
All right.
It's the only condiment that I eat. I don't eat any other condiment. I stopped eating pepper, tea, everything. I only eat meat, fat, rarely some black currant or blueberries, like just 2 or 3 or 4, just because I like them. And rarely some honey because I can go below the 70, and some sauerkraut. That's it. And eggs. Eggs, they are ketogenic. They are paleo-ketogenic. But definitely no cereal, 0 cereal. No legumes, 0 of them, because they're full of anti-nutrients causing the intestinal permeability. And no dairy, because they are the cause of the diabetes.
Okay. Great. Well, especially if you're trying the low-carb ketogenic approach right now and something's not working for you, definitely give the Paleolithic ketogenic approach a look into, because maybe that's what it's coming down to. But we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time, Vlad, and we'll see you next time, people.